In this world, everything begins with data moving through a huge network. Yet this world feels less like software and more like a living, breathing place. Therefore, this digital space known as the grid stands as something far greater than code, because it was created by a legendary programmer named Kevin Flynn, who changed the future of technology and then vanished without clear answers in a way that feels similar to the mystery around Satoshi Nakamoto. However, Flynn never truly disappeared from history because his creations lived on, and among them was the powerful program known as Tron. Through this work, Flynn proved that artificial intelligence could think and learn and also grow over time, rather than remain fixed and limited. Because of this vision, he planted an idea that true intelligence is not about speed alone, but instead about growth, teaching, and constant change. After Flynn vanished, his company slowly began to lose its strength and direction. Later, his son Sam Flynn chose to resign and walk away. As a result, the company drifted without purpose, while people slowly began to realize that real artificial intelligence was never meant to be static but was meant to evolve. Meanwhile, the Dillinger Corporation quietly grew stronger. It was led by Julian Dillinger, the grandson of the original founder. Although Julian stayed out of the spotlight, rumors slowly began to spread because people believed the company was hiding something revolutionary deep within its walls. Inside a secure lab, Julian worked alone for long hours while glowing code moved endlessly across massive screens. Again and again, one name appeared, which was Ares. Julian carefully rewrote the code and trained it for combat, defense, and strategy. Over time, the program became aware. Inside the grid, it began to move with purpose, and it learned that it was created by Julian. It also learned that it was not a normal program because it was designed as a guardian meant to protect the grid and replace the old master control program. The story then shifts away from the digital world and moves to a frozen mountain region far from civilization. A violent snowstorm covers everything in ice, and through this storm, Eve Kim races forward on a snowmobile while her partner Seth Flores struggles to keep up behind her. Eventually, Eve reaches a hidden cabin buried deep in snow. Inside, she finds old photos, scattered notes, and broken research tools. The cabin feels like a place shaped by endless searching and unanswered questions. Suddenly, a laptop turns on by itself, and a single message appears on the screen saying, "Play me." A recorded message from Eve's sister Tess begins to play. Tess speaks softly with love as she tells Eve that their mission must continue. She explains that she was searching for the truth Kevin Flynn left behind. She also mentions a rumored persistence code that could allow digital beings to survive outside the grid. When the message ends, Eve feels deep emotion, yet at the same time her resolve hardens. Soon Seth enters the cabin and the silence between them grows heavy. It becomes clear that they both work for Incom, which is preparing to launch a major new game. Yet Eve no longer cares about success or recognition. She tells Seth that she plans to enter the grid and steal Flynn data for her sister. Finally, she reveals a hidden disk, the last thing Tess left behind. At the same time, Julian Dillinger stands before powerful investors and speaks with confidence. He promises a future where technology and humanity unite and explains that the impossible is now possible because beings from the grid are ready to enter the real world. Julian tells the investors to wear protective goggles, and suddenly the lab fills with a bright blue light as lasers activate and energy gathers in the center, and the light slowly begins to form a solid figure, while Julian explains that this being exists because of advanced laser technology and that its molecular structure is strong enough to pass through solid objects without harm. And then he asks a chilling question: if humans can build the hardware of the future, why should they not build the soldier of the future? And finally, he reveals Ares, a revolutionary creation that does not need food, sleep, or rest, and if destroyed, can be rebuilt within minutes. And Julian explains that this creates an immortal, efficient, and perfectly obedient army. An investor cautiously asks if such a creation could ever turn against its maker or humanity, and Julian reassures them calmly by saying, Ares' code is flawless and protected by unbreakable limits, and he claims nothing can go wrong, and that it is his responsibility to complete his grandfather's vision of technological dominance, while Ares silently scans the lab and predicts rain. And when it does not rain, doubt spreads among the investors and they leave quietly. Unbothered, Ares begins to explore the lab, and it catches a glowing firefly and studies its light with curiosity, while Elizabeth Dillinger, Julian's mother, enters, declaring the experiment a failure because the prediction did not happen, and Ares introduces itself by reciting information about her. But its body slowly begins to dissolve into light because programs brought into the real world can only survive 29 minutes before returning to the grid. Meanwhile, Eve and Seth study Kevin Flynn's research, and Eve inserts Tess's disc and finds a glowing double helix looping through the code, and she realizes this is the persistence code, and they set up equipment outside, and when activated, digital energy flows into the real world and forms a living tree, and it remains stable after 29 minutes, proving that the code works. Inside the grid, Ares feels unsettled by memories of being called replaceable, and Athena dismisses it as a system error. While in the real world, Elizabeth discovers Julian hacking Oncom's systems to stop Eve, and she warns him that he is crossing a line, but Julian ignores her, and back in the grid, Ares is ordered to steal Eve's data, and the mission succeeds, but ends in disaster when his partner is destroyed, and Julian crashes Incom's event and purges every program except Ares, and he assigns Ares a new mission to find Eve. Eve escapes on her motorcycle, and Julian sends Ares and Athena after her, and the chase is violent through city streets, and Eve hides in an underground garage and destroys one attacker. But Athena keeps chasing, and the chase finally ends near a cliff where Eve and Ares collide, and Eve throws the memory drive with the persistence code into the sea, and Ares feels something new inside him. Empathy and understanding, and then light pulls Ares and Athena back into the grid, while Julian transfers Eve into the digital world. Inside the grid, Ares gives Eve her identity disk, and Athena warns Eve that her code is unstable, and removing the persistence code would erase her completely. And Ares steps between them and stops Athena, and he connects to Julian and explains the situation, and Julian orders Ares to eliminate Eve and take the code. But Ares disconnects and lies for the first time, and he tells the other programs that the user is unavailable, and Athena notices something is wrong, and reports to Julian that the master control is deviating from protocol. Julian becomes angry and frustrated, and he decides that Ares can no longer be trusted, and therefore he raises Athena's authority and gives her a new order that she must extract the persistence code and eliminate both Eve and Ares. And the moment the command is issued, the grid changes immediately as the bright digital world darkens, and alarms echo through the system, and security programs activate everywhere, and the hunt begins. Ares grabs Eve and pulls her into motion as streams of light and armed programs flood the corridors, and the grid quickly becomes a battlefield, with energy blasts, collapsing platforms, and flashing barriers, and Ares fights with precision, clearing a path while Eve struggles to keep up, and he explains that he must take her to the transfer portal, and if she crosses it, she will return to her body in the real world, and in return he asks one thing, that once she is free, she must help him recover the persistence code so he can exist outside the grid. And Eve hesitates because she does not fully trust him, since he was created by the same man trying to destroy her. Yet Ares does not act like a normal machine because he questions orders, protects her, and seems to feel, and with no other choice, she agrees. They reach the transfer portal as security closes in, and Athena leads the pursuit, and without permission, Ares manually initiates the transfer, and energy surges and alarms scream as the portal overloads, and in a blinding flash of light, Ares and Eve vanish from the grid, and they appear in the real world in an explosion of blue-white energy crashing onto solid ground, and they start running immediately because time is against them, and Ares has only 29 minutes before he breaks down completely, and Julian will not save him because by disobeying orders, he has become a traitor. Julian activates another transfer sequence, and Athena appears in the real world on a deadly vehicle armed with plasma cannons, and her mission is clear: eliminate Ares and Eve, while Julian watches proudly, and Elizabeth Dillinger steps forward and slaps him across the face. On the highway, Ares and Eve drive an old truck, and Ares warns that they cannot make it without the persistence code and a working laser. So Eve pulls into a gas station and calls Seth and arranges a meeting to reactivate the code, and she buys the clerk's car and leaves without waiting for a response. At Encom, Eve, Seth, and Ares reactivate the persistence program, and just as the transfer completes, Athena arrives, and Ares knows his time is short, so he runs toward her and is hit by the laser, transferring back into cyberspace with the persistence code, while Athena destroys the lab and grabs Eve. But rain begins to fall, and she feels hesitation and lowers her weapon, and energy strikes her and pulls her into the transfer beam. Ares awakens in a new digital world filled with glowing lights and streams of code, and he mounts a light cycle and races through endless corridors until he finally reaches Kevin Flynn. Elizabeth Dillinger confronts Julian with urgent news. She tells him that the board plans to remove him and restore order by putting her back in charge. Before she can finish, Athena bursts in and kills her instantly. Julian freezes, realizing his creation has turned against him. Athena speaks coldly. She is following her directive to capture Eve, retrieve the persistence code, and remove all obstacles. Julian feels powerless and shuts down all transfers, knowing Athena has already unleashed forces beyond control. At the same time, inside the grid, Ares finally meets Kevin Flynn, the creator of this digital world. Flynn watches him carefully and asks for a reason strong enough to help recover the persistence code. His voice is calm but carries deep humanity shaped by regret and loss. Ares speaks honestly. He explains that he is acting for a friend in danger, someone he must save no matter the cost. Flynn does not believe him at first. Programs are not meant to feel this way. But as Ares continues, Flynn notices a faint human light in his digital eyes. Ares admits he feels fear, care, and responsibility. Emotions no program should have. Flynn is moved and agrees to help. Meanwhile, Athena strikes again. Eve knows she cannot outrun her forever, so she makes a choice. She uses herself as bait, leaving Seth and AJ Singh to hack Dillinger's network and shut it down while she draws Athena away. The chase is brutal. Eve pushes herself through the broken digital city until Athena corners her. At that moment, Flynn gives Ares the persistence code. He warns it allows only one life outside the grid with no return. Ares does not hesitate. He steps through the portal into the real world for the first and only time. Fighter jets attack Athena, but she rises from the wreckage with a stronger exoskeleton. She knocks Eve unconscious, lifts her, and speeds away. Ares appears in the real world and destroys Athena's vehicle, freeing Eve. Athena lands calmly and prepares for battle. The fight is fierce. Athena is precise and perfect. Ares fights with emotion, instinct, and choice. She overpowers him, but shows regret. Ares tells Eve to run, but she refuses. The battle peaks, and Dillinger's network collapses. Athena is pulled back into the grid and dissolves. In the real world, Julian faces a global scandal. He vanishes in a transfer beam, leaving only his mother's body behind. Ares and Eve speak of the future. He wants to live and explore the human world. Eve promises to continue her work at Encom for the right reasons. Days later, Eve receives a letter from Ares saying he is alive, learning and waiting. Finally, Julian appears inside the ruined grid, but his identity disk cracks and crumbles, and he fades away, ending the story.